Smart work versus hard work. Why working harder is keeping you poor and how smart work changes everything. In this audiobook you will discover a truth most people never realize: real wealth is not created by working harder, but by working smarter. Most people are not poor because they lack effort, they are poor because they only rely on effort. They believe long hours, constant stress, and endless struggle automatically lead to success, but in reality that mindset often keeps them stuck in the same financial cycle. You've been taught that hard work equals success, but no one explained that hard work without direction is just wasted energy. Two people can work equally hard, yet end up in completely different financial realities, because one understands leverage, systems, and smart decisions, while the other only understands effort. The difference is not how much they work, but how they think about work itself. In this journey, you will start to see how wealth is built through strategy, not exhaustion. How time can either be spent or invested. And how small shifts in thinking can completely change your financial future. Because smart work is not doing less, it is doing what actually creates results that multiply over time. If you stay through this audiobook, you will begin to question everything you thought you knew about success, money, and effort, and you will see why changing how you think is the first step to changing how you earn. The world is addicted to the romanticized image of the bone-weary laborer returning home at dusk with calloused hands and a heavy heart, believing that this visible exhaustion is the ultimate currency of a life well lived. From the moment you entered the modern educational system, you were conditioned to believe in a linear relationship between physical or mental strain and the eventual acquisition of freedom, yet this foundational doctrine is perhaps the most sophisticated psychological trap ever devised by a society that thrives on your perpetual output. We are taught that the sweat on our brow is a badge of honor, a moral necessity that justifies our existence, but if you pause to look at the global landscape of wealth and influence, you will see a staggering disconnect that most are too tired to acknowledge. The hardest working individuals on this planet, those who sacrifice their health, their family time, and their very youth to the gears of industry, are often the ones struggling to pay for basic necessities while the architects of the systems they serve accumulate generational wealth through leverage rather than labor. This discrepancy is not a mistake or a temporary glitch in the economic matrix, it is a calculated feature of a societal framework designed to keep the majority focused on the grind while a tiny fraction understands the true mechanics of value. By glorifying the struggle, the system ensures that you never stop to ask why your effort yields such diminishing returns, effectively blinding you to the reality that you are trading your most finite resource, time, for a currency that is being devalued faster than you can earn it. You have been sold a version of success that is fundamentally broken, a lie wrapped in the comforting language of duty and resilience, intended to keep you running on a treadmill that was never meant to take you anywhere but back to your desk for another day of the same exhausting cycle. Society operates on a silent contract of conditioning that begins in childhood, where the gold star is given to the student who stays late and follows the most rigid path, rather than the one who finds a radical shortcut to the same destination. This early psychological manipulation creates a deep-seated fear of perceived laziness, making us feel guilty when we are not actively struggling, even if that struggle is entirely unproductive and leads only to burnout. We have been trained to view work through a lens of moral weight, where the difficulty of a task is used to measure its worth, yet in the cold light of reality, the market does not care how hard you worked or how much sleep you lost. It only cares about the value you provided and the scale at which that value was delivered. Most people are suffering from a form of financial blindness, unable to see that they are trapped in a system of rewards based on effort rather than intelligence or strategic positioning, which serves the interests of those at the top who require a compliant and industrious workforce to maintain their own lifestyles of leisure. This conditioning is so pervasive that we even look down on those who achieve success through ease or cleverness, labeling them as outliers or cheats, while we celebrate the person who works 3 jobs just to stay afloat as a hero of the common man. We have effectively been programmed to worship our own chains, finding a sense of nobility in the very exhaustion that is keeping us poor and preventing us from developing the mental clarity required to see the exit signs that are hidden in plain sight. Until you can break the psychological bond between your self-worth and your level of exhaustion, you will remain an involuntary participant in a game where the rules were written to ensure you never truly win, keeping you perpetually occupied with the minutiae of survival while the big picture remains obscured by the fog of your own relentless and misguided industry. The truth about wealth creation is hidden behind a veil of traditional education that emphasizes technical skill and obedient repetition over the mastery of leverage and the understanding of asymmetric returns. You were told that if you studied hard, got a good job, and put in the hours, you would eventually reach a promised land of stability, but the reality is that the middle class is being hollowed out by a systemic shift that favors those who work smart over those who simply work. This is the great lie of hard work, the idea that more input will eventually lead to more output in a direct and predictable way, ignoring the fact that we live in a world where a single correct decision can outweigh a decade of manual effort. While you are busy optimizing your morning routine and trying to squeeze 1 more hour of productivity out of your day, the truly successful are busy building systems that decouple their income from their time, allowing them to earn while they sleep while you are paid only for the moments you are physically or mentally present. This realization is profoundly uncomfortable because it suggests that much of what you have done up until this point has been a waste of your potential, a misdirection of energy based on an obsolete map of the world that no longer applies to the digital and cognitive age. The psychological manipulation is so effective because it leverages our innate desire for fairness. We want to believe that the hardest worker wins because that feels just, but the economy is not a meritocracy of effort, it is a meritocracy of results and strategic distribution. To move forward, you must first accept the stinging reality that you have been a victim of a grand cultural gaslighting, one that has kept you focused on the micro-level of tasks and to-do lists while ignoring the macro-level of wealth-building mechanics that rely on technology, capital, and delegation rather than just your own 2 hands. If you look closely at the architecture of modern poverty, you will find that it is not built on a lack of effort, but on an abundance of the wrong kind of work that offers no path to escalation or equity. The system relies on your financial blindness to keep you from realizing that you are essentially renting out your life in small increments, often for a price that barely covers the cost of your own maintenance, leaving you with nothing to invest in the very tools that could set you free. We are surrounded by a cult of busyness where being constantly overwhelmed is seen as a status symbol, a way to signal to the world that we are important and necessary, yet this is often just a mask for the fact that we have no control over our own schedules or our own destinies. This societal gloriation of the grind serves as a powerful distraction, preventing us from engaging in the deep, reflective thinking necessary to identify the high-leverage opportunities that could change our financial trajectory forever. When you are exhausted, your brain shifts into a survival mode that prioritizes immediate rewards and short-term safety over long-term strategy, ensuring that you remain a reactive cog in the machine rather than a proactive designer of your own life. This is why the hardest workers are often the most stagnant. They simply do not have the cognitive bandwidth to learn the new languages of wealth or to experiment with the disruptive technologies that are rewriting the rules of success. You have been taught to fear the quiet and the stillness that are required for smart work to flourish, because in those moments of reflection, you might actually realize that you are running in the wrong direction, and that realization is far more terrifying than the physical pain of another 12-hour shift. True power lies in the ability to step back from the chaos and recognize the transition from a mindset of hard work to one of smart work is not just a change in strategy, it is a total psychological revolution that requires you to dismantle your very identity and rebuild it on a foundation of effectiveness rather than activity. You must be willing to endure the discomfort of being misunderstood by those who still cling to the old ways, who will see your focus on leverage and automation as a sign of laziness or a lack of character, unaware that you are playing a completely different game with much higher stakes. Everything you were taught about success is broken because it was designed to create workers, not owners, and to foster dependency rather than autonomy, leaving you vulnerable to every shift in the market and every whim of your employers. Breaking free from this cycle requires a radical honesty about your current situation and a commitment to learning the skills that the school system ignored, such as how to manage risk, how to scale your impact, and how to make your money work harder than you ever could. This audiobook is the beginning of that awakening, a journey into the uncomfortable truths that the world would prefer you did not know, because once you see the strings of the puppet show, you can never go back to being a mindless participant. The lie of hard work is the primary obstacle between you and the life of freedom you were promised, and until you are ready to discard the old scripts and embrace the terrifying potential of smart work, you will continue to be a prisoner of your own industry. We are going to deconstruct the myths of the hustle culture, expose the mechanisms of your conditioning, and provide you with a new framework for achievement that prioritizes intelligence, strategy, and the ruthless pursuit of value over the hollow glory of the grind. Prepare yourself for a shift in perspective that will make you look at your daily life with a new sense of skepticism and a renewed sense of possibility. The tragedy of the modern era is not a lack of effort but an overabundance of misdirected energy that serves as a permanent anchor to a life of financial stagnation and silent desperation. Millions of individuals wake up every single morning with the genuine intention of working their way toward a better future, pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into roles that offer no path to escalation or equity, yet they remain perpetually trapped in the exact same economic position year after year. This is the ultimate poor man's trap, the deep-seated illusion that sheer volume of effort is the primary determinant of success, a fallacy that ignores the brutal reality of the market which only rewards the magnitude of value provided rather than the intensity of the struggle involved. You have been conditioned to believe that as long as you are busy, you are making progress, but busyness is often just a sophisticated form of procrastination that keeps you from doing the difficult work of thinking strategically about your life. When you spend your entire day performing repetitive, low-value tasks that can be easily replaced by a machine or a cheaper laborer, you are not building a career, you are merely maintaining a state of survival that consumes all of your cognitive bandwidth and leaves you too exhausted to look for the exit. This cycle of effort without evolution is the hallmark of financial blindness, where the individual becomes so focused on the immediate requirements of the next 24 hours that they lose the ability to see the macro patterns of their own exploitation. You are running as fast as you can on a wheel that was never designed to move forward, convinced that if you just run a little bit faster or a little bit longer, the landscape will eventually change, but the only thing that changes is the depth of your exhaustion and the erosion of your prime years. The repetition of low-value work creates a psychological prison where the walls are built out of the comfort of routine and the fear of the unknown, making it nearly impossible to break free from the gravity of mediocrity. Most people are operating within a busy but broke mindset, a state of being where every waking hour is accounted for but the bank account remains stubbornly stagnant because the work being performed has a hard ceiling on its potential return. This mindset is reinforced by a society that celebrates the grind and looks down on those who seek shortcuts, labeling efficiency as laziness while ignoring the fact that every major advancement in human history has been the result of someone looking for a way to achieve more with less physical effort. When you repeat the same tasks day after day without increasing your skill set, your leverage, or your ownership, you are effectively betting against yourself, trading your most valuable asset for a wage that is designed to keep you coming back for more without ever allowing you to accumulate enough to leave. This creates a devastating financial stagnation cycle where you are always one or two missed paychecks away from total catastrophe, leaving you in a permanent state of high-alert stress that further impairs your ability to make rational, long-term decisions. The emotional frustration that stems from this reality is often redirected into temporary escapes like mindless entertainment or consumerism, which only serve to deepen the trap by draining what little capital you have left and reinforcing the need for more hours at the desk or on the factory floor. You are caught in a feedback loop of diminishing returns, where the more you work, the less you have to show for it in real terms, as inflation and the rising cost of living outpace your ability to scale your labor within the confines of a traditional job. Breaking the illusion that effort equals success requires a brutal and honest assessment of the actual market value of your daily activities, independent of how much they drain your energy or how important they feel to your ego. The economy is entirely indifferent to your struggle. It does not pay you for the hours you put in or the sacrifices you make for your employer. It only pays for the problems you solve and the level of difficulty associated with replacing you in that specific role. If your work consists of tasks that millions of others can do just as well with minimal training, you have no bargaining power and no path to wealth, regardless of how many double shifts you volunteer for or how early you arrive at the office. This realization is the first step toward escaping the poor man's trap, yet it is also the most painful because it forces you to acknowledge that your current level of effort is essentially a waste of potential in the grand scheme of wealth creation. We see this play out in every corner of the globe, from the laborer in the field to the middle manager drowning in spreadsheets, both of them working incredibly hard yet both of them remaining equally vulnerable to the shifting winds of technology and corporate downsizing. The habit of valuing activity over results is a learned behavior that serves the interests of those who profit from your labor, ensuring a steady supply of compliant workers who are too busy to become competitors and too tired to realize they are being undervalued. Until you can decouple your identity from the act of working and begin to view your time as a limited resource to be invested in high-leverage assets, you will remain a victim of this systemic conditioning that prizes your obedience over your intelligence and your presence over your performance. The psychological toll of the effort trap is a slow erosion of the spirit, where the constant disconnect between your hard work and your financial reality leads to a sense of learned helplessness and a deep, underlying cynicism about the possibility of change. Over time, the busy but broke mindset becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, as you stop looking for opportunities because you have been burned so many times by the false promise of the grind, leading you to accept your stagnation as an inevitable part of life. This emotional exhaustion is precisely what the system requires to function, as it prevents the average person from ever developing the audacity to challenge the status quo or the discipline to spend their few remaining hours building something they truly own. You see others achieving massive success and you assume they must have some secret advantage or that they were born into luck, refusing to see that the primary difference is often simply their refusal to trade their time for a fixed wage and their obsession with finding ways to automate and scale their impact. Your habits of thought are just as much a part of the trap as your habits of action. If you believe that wealth is only for the corrupt or the lucky, you will never take the necessary steps to acquire it through smart, strategic positioning. The financial stagnation cycle is fueled by these limiting beliefs, which act as internal governors that prevent you from even considering paths that involve risk or unconventional thinking, keeping you safely within the herd where everyone is equally overworked and equally broke. To escape, you must be willing to be the odd one out, the person who stops running on the wheel to figure out how to build a motorized vehicle that can travel much further with a fraction of the physical strain, even if everyone else thinks you are just wasting your time standing still. Ultimately, the difference between the poor man and the wealthy one is not the amount of work they do, but the nature of the work they choose and the systems they build to support their goals, moving from a paradigm of linear growth to one of exponential leverage. You must realize that working harder in a broken system is like trying to fix a sinking ship by bailing out water with a spoon. You might stay afloat for a little while longer, but you are never going to reach the shore until you fix the hole in the hull or find a better boat. Smart work is the process of identifying the 20% of actions that produce 80% of the results and ruthlessly eliminating the rest, but this requires a level of focus and mental clarity that most people simply cannot achieve while they are drowning in the noise of a busy schedule. The trap is designed to be invisible, masked by the nobility of the struggle and the social approval that comes with being a hard worker, making it the most dangerous obstacle to your financial and personal freedom. You must develop a radical intolerance for low-value effort and a deep respect for the power of leverage, whether that comes from technology, capital, or other people's labor, because that is the only way to break the cycle of poverty and enter the realm of true abundance. This chapter serves as your final warning. The more you lean into the lie of hard work without a strategic shift, the more you solidify your place in the poor man's trap, guaranteeing a future of more of the same until you are too old or too broken to care anymore. The path to change starts with the uncomfortable admission that your effort has been your greatest liability, and that your survival depends on your ability to stop working like a machine and start thinking like a creator who understands how to make the world work for them. The morning alarm is not a wake-up call but a starting pistol in a race where the finish line perpetually recedes into the horizon of next month's bills. Most of the world is trapped in a linear hallucination where the only path to increased wealth is the proportional sacrifice of more hours, but this is a mathematical dead end. When you sell your time, you are participating in the most expensive transaction of your life because you are trading a finite non-renewable resource for a renewable currency that is constantly being devalued by the very system you serve. The poor and middle class view their schedule as a retail shelf where every hour must be stocked and sold to the highest bidder until they are physically and mentally depleted. This paradigm creates a ceiling on your potential that no amount of grit can shatter, because even if you work 24 hours a day you would eventually hit the absolute limit of your biology. The intellectual awakening begins when you realize that your time is not a commodity to be liquidated but the primary capital that must be protected and deployed with the precision of a master surgeon. The rich do not see themselves as laborers in the field of time but as architects who design systems to harvest it. They understand that if you are the primary engine of your income, you are essentially a high-end slave to your own heartbeat. To transition from hard work to smart work, you must first undergo the painful realization that your current exhaustion is not a badge of honor but a symptom of a deeply flawed economic philosophy that prioritizes immediate survival over long-term structural freedom and systemic leverage. Buying freedom is the ultimate luxury that the wealthy prioritize above all physical possessions because they recognize that a gold watch is worthless if you have no time to look at it. While the average worker is busy calculating how many hours of labor it takes to afford a new smartphone, the wealthy individual is calculating how much of someone else's time they can purchase to reclaim their own day. This is the fundamental shift from being a consumer of life to being an investor in existence. When you hire someone or automate a task, you are not just delegating work, you are literally purchasing pieces of your life back from the void of mundane repetition. This creates a compounding effect where the time you buy back is reinvested into higher-level strategic thinking, which in turn generates more capital to buy even more time. The cycle of poverty is maintained by the psychological pressure to do everything yourself to save money, while the cycle of wealth is fueled by the willingness to spend money to save time. This is why the rich seem to move through the world with a sense of calm and deliberate pace, while the rest of the world is caught in a frantic blur of activity. They have mastered the art of the time arbitrage, where they buy hours at a wholesale rate through employees or technology and sell the output of those hours at a premium. Freedom is not a destination you reach after 40 years of toil. It is a daily practice of reclaiming your minutes from the marketplace of mediocrity. If you want to change your financial reality, you must stop asking what you can do to earn more and start asking whose time you can leverage to create a life that functions independently of your physical presence. The concept of opportunity cost is the silent killer of dreams for those who pride themselves on working hard without a strategy. Every hour you spend performing a task that could be done by someone else for a lower rate is an hour you have effectively stolen from your future self. If your goal is to earn $1,000 an hour but you spend your morning cleaning your house or responding to basic emails, you have essentially agreed to work for minimum wage during those periods. This is the hidden tax on the soul that keeps people busy but broke. The smart worker understands that their value is not determined by the intensity of their struggle but by the rarity and impact of their decisions. You must learn to view your day through the lens of high-leverage activities versus low-leverage maintenance. Hard work ignores the scale of impact while smart work obsessively focuses on it. Imagine a person trying to move a mountain with a shovel versus a person who spends their time designing a tectonic shift. The first person is working much harder and is arguably more exhausted, but the second person is the one who actually changes the landscape. You are currently selling your hours at a discount because you have failed to account for the massive opportunity cost of your manual labor. To break free, you must develop a radical intolerance for any activity that does not move the needle of your long-term vision. This requires a psychological divorce from the idea that being busy is the same as being productive. True productivity is the art of achieving the maximum result with the minimum expenditure of your own vital energy. When you stop fearing the void of unscheduled time and start filling it with high-level observation and strategy, you begin to see the levers of the world that were previously hidden by the dust of your own constant motion. Leverage is the holy grail of the modern economic landscape, and it is the bridge between the exhaustion of the masses and the effortless abundance of the elite. There are three primary forms of leverage that allow you to decouple your income from your clock: labor, capital, and digital assets. Labor leverage is the traditional method of hiring others to execute your vision, but it is the introduction of capital and digital scale that has truly revolutionized the value of an hour. In the digital age, a single hour of smart work spent creating a piece of software or a content engine can be replicated and sold 1 billion times while you sleep. This is the ultimate expression of buying freedom, because you are essentially creating a digital clone of your expertise that works for you for eternity without needing a paycheck or a break. The hard worker sees a task and thinks about how to finish it, while the smart worker sees a task and thinks about how to build a system that finishes it forever. This is the difference between fishing for a meal and building an automated fleet of ships. The psychological shift required here is profound because it demands that you value your mind more than your muscles. You must overcome the primal guilt that suggests you are only worthy of wealth if you are suffering for it. The universe does not reward sweat, it rewards the efficient resolution of problems. By investing your time into building leverage, you are creating a gravity well of value that pulls wealth toward you regardless of whether you are sitting at a desk or walking on a beach. This is not laziness, it is the highest form of stewardship over the limited time you have been granted on this planet. You are moving from the role of the engine, which is prone to burnout and failure, to the role of the pilot who directs the energy of a vast and powerful machine. As you stand at the crossroads of your career, you must decide whether you will continue to be a tenant in the prison of the hourly rate or if you will become a landlord of your own destiny. The transition to smart work is not a change in your schedule, it is a total revolution of your identity. You must stop seeing yourself as a unit of production and start seeing yourself as a center of distribution. The rich do not have more hours than you, they simply have more people and more systems working within their hours. They have escaped the gravity of the clock by building rockets of leverage that propel them into an orbit of perpetual freedom. This journey requires the courage to say no to the distractions of busyness and the discipline to focus on the high-value activities that others are too afraid or too tired to pursue. You must become a ruthless guardian of your attention, because attention is the precursor to time. Where your attention goes, your time follows, and where your time goes, your life is spent. If you continue to sell your hours for the promise of a safe paycheck, you will eventually find yourself at the end of your life with a pile of receipts but no memories of actual liberty. True wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and realize that your day belongs entirely to you. It is the power to choose what you work on, who you work with, and why you are doing it. This is the promise of smart work, and it is the only way to truly honor the currency of your life. The difference between poverty and prosperity is not the amount of money in your bank account today, but the way you choose to spend the minutes of your tomorrow. Break the chains of the hourly grind and embrace the philosophy of leverage, because once you learn how to buy your freedom, you will never be willing to sell your soul to the clock again. This is the awakening that changes everything, and the door is now open for you to walk through. The architecture of elite success is built upon a foundation of leverage rather than a foundation of raw effort, because the world does not compensate you for the volume of your sweat but for the magnitude of the value you control. While the average individual is focused on the manual completion of tasks, the smart worker is obsessively focused on the creation of systems that can function independently of their physical presence. This is the first pillar of the smart work code, which dictates that every action must be evaluated by its potential for scalability and permanence. Successful people do not simply do the work, they design the machinery that does the work. They understand that a single hour spent building an automated sequence or a repeatable process is worth 1,000 hours of repetitive manual labor. This mindset requires a radical departure from the traditional work ethic that equates physical exhaustion with moral superiority. In the world of the elite, being busy is often seen as a failure of design rather than a badge of honor. To work smart is to act as a high-level engineer of outcomes, ensuring that every unit of energy invested triggers a cascade of results through delegation and technology. You must move from the role of the technician who handles the tools to the role of the architect who drafts the blueprint. By focusing on systems, you are effectively creating a version of yourself that never sleeps, never tires, and never loses focus. This is how the wealthy manage to produce more in a single afternoon than the average worker produces in a month. They are not working harder in the moment, they are benefiting from the hard work they did to build the system in the past. If you are not building a system, you are destined to be a component within someone else's machine, and your potential will always be capped by the limits of your own two hands. The second pillar of the smart work code is the ruthless mastery of delegation, which is the art of multiplying your impact by utilizing the specialized talents of others. Most people struggle to delegate because they suffer from the arrogance of thinking they are the only ones who can do the job correctly, or because they fear the perceived cost of hiring help. However, the smart worker realizes that the cost of doing a low-value task yourself is far higher than the salary of an assistant because it drains the mental energy required for high-stakes decision-making. Successful people are masters at identifying their unique zone of genius and outsourcing everything else to people who are more efficient in those specific domains. This creates a synergy where the collective output of a team far exceeds the sum of its individual parts. Delegation is not just about offloading work, it is about reclaiming the executive function of your brain so you can focus on the strategic moves that actually move the needle of your enterprise. When you insist on doing everything yourself, you are effectively telling the universe that your time is only worth the market rate of the most menial task on your to-do list. The elite mindset views every task through a filter of who, not how. Instead of asking how can I get this done, they ask who is the best person in the world to handle this so I can remain focused on my core mission. This allows them to maintain a bird's-eye view of the landscape, identifying opportunities and threats that are invisible to those who are buried in the weeds of daily operations. By surrounding yourself with experts, you are not just getting work done, you are gaining access to their years of experience and specialized knowledge, which further accelerates your progress toward your ultimate goals. Strategic thinking is the silent engine of extraordinary wealth, and it represents the third pillar of the smart work code, where every move is calculated for maximum impact with minimum friction. The common worker moves through life reacting to the immediate demands of their environment like a pinball being bounced from one crisis to another. In contrast, the strategic worker operates like a grandmaster on a chessboard, thinking 10 moves ahead and positioning themselves where the ball is going to be rather than where it is now. This requires a level of patience and emotional control that is rare in a culture addicted to instant gratification and superficial activity. Strategy is about the choices you make to avoid unnecessary battles and to find the paths of least resistance that lead to the greatest rewards. It involves a constant assessment of the competitive landscape, the current economic trends, and the internal strengths that give you a unique advantage. Successful people spend a significant portion of their time in deep reflection and analysis, often appearing to be doing nothing while they are actually doing the most important work of all. They are looking for the asymmetrical opportunities where a small amount of capital or effort can lead to a massive return. This is the difference between a soldier who fights with bravery and a general who wins the war before the first shot is fired through superior positioning and logistics. To master the smart work code, you must develop a thirst for data and a cold clinical approach to execution. You must be willing to abandon projects that are no longer serving your vision and pivot with lightning speed when the market provides new information. Strategic thinking turns work into a game of precision rather than a test of endurance, and it ensures that every drop of your energy is used to propel you toward the highest possible peak of achievement. Automation is the fourth pillar and the ultimate force multiplier in the modern era, allowing the smart worker to transcend the biological limitations of time and space. While the hard worker is manually entering data or sending individual emails, the smart worker is deploying sophisticated software and artificial intelligence to handle these repetitive cycles at a scale that is impossible for a human to match. Successful people treat automation as a digital workforce that requires no management and never asks for a raise. They are constantly looking for ways to replace manual touch points with algorithmic solutions, creating a seamless flow of value that operates in the background of their lives. This digital leverage is what allows small teams or even solo entrepreneurs to compete with massive corporations in the 21st century. The beauty of automation is that it is infinitely scalable, which means that the cost of serving 1,000 customers is nearly the same as the cost of serving 10. This creates the massive profit margins that define the elite class. However, automation is not just about technology, it is about a mindset that rejects any form of repetitive labor as a waste of human potential. If a task can be described by a set of rules, it should be handled by a machine so that the human mind can be liberated for creative problem solving and high-level connection. The Smart Work Code demands that you become proficient in the tools of your trade, or that you hire the people who can build these tools for you. By automating the mundane, you are buying back your cognitive bandwidth, which is the most valuable asset in an information-driven economy. This allows you to stay fresh and innovative while your competitors are grinding themselves into obsolescence through the sheer weight of their manual processes. You are essentially building a digital legacy that continues to produce results long after you have moved on to your next big venture. The final pillar of the Smart Work Code is the psychology of high-stakes decision-making and the ability to maintain a calm and focused mind in the face of complexity. Successful people understand that the quality of their life is determined by the quality of their decisions, not the quantity of their actions. This is why they prioritize sleep, health, and mental clarity above the grind culture that glamorizes burnout. A single high-level decision made with a clear head can be worth millions of dollars, whereas 1,000 decisions made in a state of exhaustion are likely to lead to errors and setbacks. The elite mindset recognizes that their brain is their most valuable piece of equipment, and they treat it with the respect it deserves. They avoid the trap of decision fatigue by automating or delegating small choices so they can save their mental energy for the critical moments that define their success. This level of discipline requires a strong sense of self-awareness and the ability to say no to the majority of requests that come their way. They are not interested in being liked or appearing busy, they are interested in being effective. This practical approach to execution means that when they do act, they do so with a level of intensity and precision that is terrifying to their competitors. They do not hesitate or second-guess themselves because their actions are backed by a rigorous framework of systems, strategy, and leverage. The Smart Work Code is not a secret, but it is a difficult path because it requires you to unlearn everything you were taught about the value of hard work in its primitive form. It invites you to step into a higher level of existence where you are the master of your circumstances rather than a victim of your schedule. By implementing these 5 pillars, you are not just changing how you work, you are changing who you are and ensuring that your future is defined by abundance, freedom, and a legacy of impact. The concept of invisible leverage represents the ultimate transition from the physical world of labor to the intellectual world of high-stakes wealth generation, where your output is no longer a prisoner of your input. This is the 5th pillar of the Smart Work Code, and it focuses on the hidden forces that allow the elite to move mountains with a single finger while the rest of the world struggles to move pebbles with their entire bodies. Invisible leverage is composed of 4 primary dimensions, which are capital, labor, digital assets, and specific knowledge, and when combined they create a force multiplier that transcends the laws of traditional physics. Most people are only aware of labor leverage, but the truly wealthy understand that capital is the most efficient employee ever created because it never sleeps, never complains, and works 24 hours a day to replicate itself. When you invest your money into assets that appreciate or generate cash flow, you are essentially hiring a digital army of dollars to fight for your freedom on the global battlefield. This is the first step toward decoupling your survival from your schedule, and it requires a visionary perspective to see the value in things that are not yet visible to the naked eye. In the old economy, you needed a massive factory and thousands of workers to create an impact, but in the modern era, a single individual with a laptop and a clear strategy can command more influence than a medieval king. This is not a dream, it is the mathematical reality of the information age, where the cost of replication is zero and the reach of a single idea is infinite. To master this level of success, you must stop thinking in terms of what you can do and start thinking in terms of what you can control and direct through the power of systems that operate beyond your physical reach. Digital leverage is the great equalizer of our time, and it serves as the most powerful weapon for the smart worker because it allows for the infinite scaling of value without a corresponding increase in overhead or effort. Unlike labor leverage, which requires the complex management of human emotions and schedules, digital leverage is composed of code content and algorithms that perform exactly as they are instructed every single time. When you create a digital product, an automated sales funnel, or a content engine, you are building a machine that can serve millions of people simultaneously without requiring a single extra minute of your time. This is the true definition of passive income, which is not about doing nothing but about doing the work once and being paid for it for the rest of your life. The rich do not spend their time trading hours for dollars, they spend their time building these digital fortresses that collect wealth on their behalf while they focus on their next high-level move. Imagine the difference between a person who sells a physical book one by one in a store and a person who hosts a digital course that is accessed by students all over the globe at any time of day. The first person is limited by their location and their physical presence, while the second person has achieved a state of omnipresence where their knowledge is working for them in every time zone at once. This is why the modern wealthy are often young and highly mobile, because they have mastered the art of building invisible systems that do the heavy lifting for them. To succeed in this landscape, you must become a digital architect who understands how to weave together various platforms and tools to create a seamless flow of value that requires no manual intervention from you once it is set in motion. Knowledge leverage is the third dimension of this invisible force, and it involves the accumulation and application of rare and valuable skills that cannot be easily replicated by others or by machines. In a world where basic information is a commodity, specific knowledge is the currency that buys the most power because it allows you to see the connections and opportunities that others miss. The smart worker understands that their brain is a supercomputer, and they spend a significant portion of their time upgrading their mental software through deep study and high-level networking. This is not about general education but about the kind of specialized expertise that allows you to solve a $1 million problem in 10 minutes because you have spent 10 years learning exactly where to place the lever. This is the ultimate form of efficiency because it allows you to command a premium price for your time while working fewer hours than everyone else. When you have specific knowledge, the world comes to you with opportunities because you are the only one who can unlock a particular door. This creates a virtuous cycle where your reputation grows and your leverage increases, allowing you to choose only the most lucrative and meaningful projects. Successful people are obsessive about protecting their intellectual capital, and they use it as a filter to decide which systems to build and which assets to acquire. They do not waste their energy on things that anyone can do. They focus on the things that only they can do, which ensures that their impact is unique and their wealth is secure. By combining specific knowledge with digital leverage, you create an unstoppable force that allows you to dominate your niche while maintaining a level of freedom that the hard worker can only imagine in their wildest dreams. People leverage remains a critical component of the invisible code, but in the modern era it has been transformed from traditional management into the art of building high-performance networks and strategic partnerships. The rich do not just hire employees, they build ecosystems of talent where every individual is incentivized to perform at their highest level toward a common goal. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology and the ability to inspire others to see your vision as their own. When you have the right people in the right places, you are not just delegating tasks, you are multiplying your cognitive capacity because you have access to their insights, their experiences, and their networks. This is how the elite manage to oversee multiple companies and projects at the same time without burning out. They have mastered the art of being the conductor of an orchestra rather than trying to play every instrument themselves. They understand that their primary job is to provide the direction and the resources while allowing the experts to execute the details. This level of trust and delegation is what separates the small business owner from the global tycoon. To move into this category, you must develop the leadership skills necessary to attract and retain top-tier talent, which means you must offer more than just a paycheck. You must offer a mission that is worth their time. By leveraging the time and talents of others, you are effectively buying years of life and centuries of experience which you can then apply to your own objectives. This is the most ancient form of leverage, but when combined with modern technology, it becomes a visionary tool for creating massive change in the world without requiring you to sacrifice your own peace of mind or your personal life. Scaling without effort. Scaling is the final objective of the Smart Work Code, and it is the point where your wealth becomes an autonomous force that grows independently of your daily actions. This is the stage where you move from being a worker to being an owner, and where your primary focus shifts to capital allocation and long-term vision. The hard worker believes that if they want to double their income, they must double their effort, but the smart worker knows that if they want to double their income, they must improve their leverage. This mindset shift is what allows for exponential growth in a world that is used to linear progress. When your systems are automated, your digital assets are producing, and your capital is invested, your wealth will naturally begin to compound at a rate that far exceeds your ability to spend it. This is the true meaning of financial freedom, which is the ability to live exactly how you want without ever having to worry about money again. It is a state of being where your time is entirely your own and your work is a choice rather than a necessity. The journey to this point is not about working harder, it is about working smarter and being more intentional about every move you make. You must be willing to sacrifice the short-term comfort of a steady paycheck for the long-term security of a diversified portfolio of leveraged assets. This requires a level of courage and foresight that most people do not possess, but for those who are willing to follow the Smart Work Code, the rewards are infinite. You have the power to rewrite your financial destiny by choosing to stop selling your hours and start building your empire. The world is full of invisible levers waiting for you to pull them, and once you understand how to multiply your results without multiplying your effort, you will never look at work the same way again. The internal architecture of your financial reality is not built with numbers and spreadsheets, but with the silent echoes of your earliest memories and the invisible blueprints of your subconscious beliefs about worthiness and survival. Most people move through the world convinced that their lack of wealth is a result of external circumstances or a simple lack of effort, but the truth is far more intimate and unsettling, because your bank account is a mirror reflecting the hidden landscape of your mind. If you grew up in an environment where money was a source of conflict or a scarce resource that required backbreaking labor to obtain, you have likely hardwired a psychological ceiling that prevents you from rising above a certain level of comfort. This is the phenomenon of the financial thermostat, where your subconscious mind works tirelessly to keep you in a familiar state of struggle because it equates stability with safety, even if that stability is rooted in poverty. When you begin to earn more than your internal program allows, you will often find yourself subconsciously sabotaging your progress through impulsive decisions or a sudden lack of focus. This deep introspective realization is the first step toward true liberation, because you cannot change a system that you do not understand, and you cannot escape a prison if you do not realize you are the one holding the keys. You must be willing to sit in the quiet darkness of your own psyche and ask yourself what you truly believe about money and whether those beliefs were ever actually yours to begin with. The psychology of money is the study of how your emotional history dictates your economic future, and until you make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct your life, and you will call it fate. Scarcity is a powerful hallucinogen that distorts your perception of opportunity and traps you in a cycle of short-term survival at the expense of long-term flourishing. When you operate from a mindset of lack, you are essentially living in a state of perpetual emergency where your brain is flooded with cortisol and your ability to think strategically is severely compromised. This psychological state forces you to focus on the immediate obstacles in front of you, making it impossible to see the vast horizons of leverage and smart work that exist just beyond your current struggle. Fear is the primary architect of the scarcity mindset, and it manifests as a desperate need to cling to what you have rather than investing in what you could become. This is why many hard workers are terrified of delegating tasks or investing in new systems, because they view every dollar spent as a loss rather than a seed for future abundance. Their habits are driven by a deep-seated anxiety that there is never enough to go around, and this belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as they close themselves off from the collaborative and expansive nature of true wealth. Emotional spending is often a temporary numbing agent for this underlying fear, where people buy things they do not need with money they do not have, to impress people they do not like, just to feel a fleeting sense of control. To break this cycle, you must undergo a profound emotional transformation that replaces the logic of survival with the logic of abundance. This is not about blind optimism, but about the strategic recognition that the world is full of value waiting to be unlocked by a mind that is no longer paralyzed by the threat of losing what little it possesses. Your subconscious beliefs act as a silent governor on your engine of success, determining exactly how much power you are allowed to output before the system shuts down to protect your identity. For many, the idea of being wealthy is subconsciously linked to negative archetypes such as greed or the loss of genuine connection with their community, which creates a profound internal conflict. If your heart believes that money is the root of all evil while your mind tries to pursue it, you will live in a state of permanent friction that prevents you from ever achieving significant momentum. This internal tug of war is the reason why so many people work incredibly hard yet never seem to move forward, because they are effectively driving through life with one foot on the gas and the other slammed on the brake. The emotional weight of your past failures and the societal pressure to conform to a life of modest struggle creates a heavy gravity that pulls you back toward mediocrity every time you try to soar. You must examine the narratives you tell yourself about what it means to be a person of means, and whether you are afraid of the person you might become if you no longer had the struggle of money to define your character. For some, the struggle itself is a source of pride and a way to feel superior to those who seem to have it easy, but this pride is a trap that keeps you tethered to the very poverty you claim to despise. Transforming your mindset requires the courage to let go of the identity of the martyr and embrace the identity of the creator, who is worthy of receiving the full rewards of their intelligence and strategic effort without guilt or hesitation. Habits are the physical manifestation of your psychological state, and they serve as the bridge between your inner world and your outer results. If your mind is cluttered with indecision and self-doubt, your daily routine will be a reflection of that chaos, leading to wasted time and missed opportunities for leverage. The rich develop a psychology of discipline that is rooted in a deep respect for their own potential, while the poor often fall into habits of distraction as a way to escape the discomfort of their current reality. This emotional avoidance is the silent killer of wealth, because it prevents you from doing the deep work required to build the systems of the future. When you use your time to mindlessly consume media or engage in low-value activities, you are essentially telling your subconscious that your dreams are not worth the effort of your focus. This creates a feedback loop where your lack of progress reinforces your low self-esteem, which in turn leads to even more destructive habits. To change your life, you must first change the way you feel about your time and your ability to influence the world. You must develop an emotional attachment to your goals that is stronger than your desire for immediate comfort. This means facing the discomfort of growth and the fear of the unknown with a sense of purpose and a clear understanding of your psychological triggers. Smart work is as much about managing your internal state as it is about managing external resources, because a focused mind is the most powerful leverage tool in existence. By identifying the emotional roots of your habits, you can begin to rewire your responses and create a new neural pathway that leads directly to the life of freedom and abundance that you were designed to lead. The final stage of this psychological awakening is the realization that money is ultimately a neutral energy that takes on the characteristics of the person who holds it. It is a magnifying glass that reveals your true intentions and your deepest insecurities. If you are a person of integrity and vision, money will allow you to scale your impact and create incredible beauty in the world. But if you are a person of fear and greed, money will only serve to amplify those shadows. This is why the pursuit of wealth must be accompanied by the pursuit of self-mastery, because a bank account that grows faster than the human behind it is a recipe for disaster. When you shift your mindset from a focus on getting to a focus on giving and creating value, you tap into a universal flow that is far more powerful than your individual effort. This is the essence of the elite psychological code, where wealth is seen as a tool for expression rather than a shield for protection. As you move through these chapters and begin to implement the strategies of smart work, you must constantly check back in with your emotional center to ensure that you are building your empire on a foundation of clarity and peace. The difference between the hard worker who stays poor and the smart worker who becomes wealthy is often just a few degrees of perspective and the willingness to face the mirror. You are no longer a victim of your past or a slave to your subconscious programming, because you now have the tools to rewrite the script of your life. Embrace the power of your mind as the ultimate architect of your destiny, and watch as the world reshapes itself to match the new and expanded vision of who you are and what you are capable of achieving in this lifetime. The architecture of your current limitations was drafted long before you were old enough to consent to the design, as society operates on a silent industrial blueprint designed to produce compliant cogs rather than visionary architects. From the moment you entered the traditional education system, you were conditioned to believe that following instructions and seeking permission were the primary virtues of a successful life. The classroom was never intended to be a laboratory for wealth creation, but a training ground for endurance, where the ability to sit still for 8 hours and perform repetitive tasks was rewarded with the hollow validation of a letter grade. This institutional grooming creates a psychological dependency on a centralized authority figure to provide a roadmap for your survival, which is the ultimate antithesis of the entrepreneurial spirit required for smart work. You were taught that the safest path is the one most traveled, and that deviation from the herd is a recipe for disaster, but this is the grand lie that keeps the masses tethered to the floor of the economic pyramid. The school system measures your worth by your ability to memorize and regurgitate established facts rather than your ability to question the status quo or create new value through innovative leverage. By the time you graduate, your instinct for risk has been systematically replaced by a paralyzing fear of failure, and you are released into the world with a high level of technical literacy but a complete bankruptcy of financial intuition. This is the first layer of the conditioning that ensures you will spend the rest of your life working hard for someone who was brave enough to ignore the very rules you are so desperate to follow. To break free, you must first realize that your education was not a gift but a strategic enclosure designed to limit the scope of your imagination and the scale of your ambition. Cultural pressure acts as a secondary invisible fence that uses the threat of social exile to maintain the boundaries of your economic potential and keep you within the safe confines of the middle class. We are surrounded by a narrative that glamorizes the struggle and paints the pursuit of significant wealth as an act of greed or a betrayal of one's roots. Your friends, family, and colleagues are often the unwitting enforcers of this mediocrity because your growth serves as a painful reminder of their own stagnation. When you begin to question the value of the 40-year grind or express interest in building autonomous systems of leverage, you will be met with the cold winds of skepticism and the well-meaning warnings of those who have been domesticated by the system. This collective crab mentality ensures that anyone who attempts to climb out of the bucket is pulled back down by the weight of societal expectations and the fear of being perceived as different. The culture rewards the visible effort of the man with the shovel but looks with suspicion upon the man with the machine because the machine represents a level of freedom that the culture cannot comprehend. You are taught that you must pay your dues and wait your turn, but in the world of smart work there is no line and there are no turns, only the bold and the calculated. This societal programming is designed to make you feel guilty for desiring a life of ease and abundance, suggesting that there is something noble about exhaustion and something suspicious about efficiency. Breaking this conditioning requires a rebellious spirit that is willing to be misunderstood by the many in order to be joined by the few who have mastered the art of living on their own terms. You must develop a thick skin and a clear vision that allows you to navigate the pressure of conformity without losing the essence of your unique drive. The safety thinking paradox is the most dangerous trap in the modern economic landscape because it convinces you to trade your long-term freedom for the illusion of short-term security. Society trains you to value a steady paycheck above all else, but a single source of income is the most precarious position a human can inhabit, as it places your entire livelihood in the hands of a single decision-maker. The institutionalized fear of the unknown keeps people locked in jobs they hate and careers that provide no leverage because they have been taught that a certain misery is better than an uncertain opportunity. This mindset kills financial growth at the root because wealth requires the calculated deployment of capital and energy into areas that have the potential for exponential returns, which always involves a degree of initial ambiguity. While the hard worker is busy protecting their small pile of savings, the smart worker is busy exploring the frontiers of automation and digital assets where the risks are managed but the rewards are uncapped. The conditioning of safety forces you to view the world through a lens of loss prevention rather than gain maximization, making you a permanent tenant in the house of mediocrity. To move into the elite class, you must undergo a radical psychological reorientation where you begin to view volatility as a source of information and risk as the price of admission for a life of extraordinary impact. The real danger is not in taking a chance on a new venture but in the slow and silent death of your potential as you spend 40 years avoiding the very challenges that would have made you wealthy. Security is not found in a contract or a government promise but in your own ability to create value out of thin air using the tools of smart work and strategic leverage. Once you stop seeking the permission of the cautious, you will find that the world is an open playground for the brave and the innovative. Media and consumerism form the final layer of the societal cage by keeping your attention focused on the trivial and your bank account drained by the pursuit of status symbols that provide no actual leverage. We are bombarded with messages that equate your value as a human being with the brands you wear and the cars you drive, creating a cycle of high-interest debt that keeps you permanently tethered to the workplace. This is a strategic distraction designed to prevent you from accumulating the capital necessary to buy your own time and build your own systems. When you are caught in a treadmill of working to buy things to impress people, you are essentially a voluntary participant in a modern form of indentured servitude. The elite understand that true status is the ability to walk away from any situation, while the masses are taught that status is the ability to buy more things. This constant noise of consumerism blurs the line between needs and wants and makes it nearly impossible for the average person to find the mental clarity required for high-level strategic thinking. The conditioning is so deep that people will actually defend their chains, arguing that they need the latest gadget or the luxury lease while their future is being sold off 1 hour at a time. To break the conditioning, you must become a minimalist of the mind and a maximalist of the vision, focusing your resources on assets that pay you rather than liabilities that drain you. This requires an introspective audit of your desires to determine which are truly yours and which were implanted by a marketing department designed to keep you broke and busy. By reclaiming your attention from the spectacle of the mundane, you free up the cognitive bandwidth necessary to engineer your escape from the average life. This is the rebellion of the intellect, where you choose the quiet power of freedom over the loud performance of wealth. True liberation comes when you finally realize that the walls of the system are not made of concrete but of consensus, and that you have the power to walk through them at any moment you choose to stop believing in their solidity. Breaking the conditioning is not a one-time event but a daily practice of questioning your assumptions and rejecting the scripts that were handed to you by an exhausted society. You must become the protagonist of your own narrative and the primary authority in your own life, refusing to accept the limitations that were designed to keep you small. The path of smart work is a lonely one at first because it requires you to leave the comfort of the crowd and step into the sunlight of your own potential. As you implement the strategies of leverage and systems that we have discussed, you will feel the pull of the old programming trying to bring you back to the safety of the average life, but you must remain steadfast in your rebellion. You are not a unit of production or a statistic in a government report. You are a creator with the capability to bend the economic reality to your will through the application of intelligence and strategy. The world needs your vision and your innovation far more than it needs your manual labor or your quiet compliance. By breaking the chains of your upbringing and the expectations of your culture, you are not just helping yourself, but you are providing a blueprint for others to follow. This is the ultimate form of smart work, where your life itself becomes a leveraged asset that inspires a movement toward freedom and abundance. The cage door has always been unlocked, and the only thing keeping you inside was the belief that you belonged there. Step out into the unknown and claim the life of extraordinary wealth and liberty that has been waiting for you since the moment you decided to stop being average. The single salary is the most sophisticated form of economic bondage ever devised, because it creates a psychological dependency that paralyzes your ability to take the very risks required for true financial liberation. When you rely on one employer for your total survival, you are living in a state of high-stakes vulnerability, where a single signature from a manager or a shift in corporate strategy can instantly delete your entire financial foundation. This is what I call an income chain, a heavy link that connects your daily survival to a singular point of failure, ensuring that you can never truly speak your mind or pursue your own vision with total honesty. The smart worker understands that a job is not a destination but a temporary capital-raising tool to be used for the construction of multiple income streams that operate independently of one another. You must undergo a strategic awakening, where you view every paycheck not as a reward for your time but as the raw fuel for your future independence. Diversification is not just a strategy for the stock market, it is a survival mandate for the modern individual who refuses to be a victim of a volatile economy. By spreading your income sources across different assets and platforms, you dilute the power that any one entity has over your life, and you begin to experience the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that your survival is no longer a matter of permission. The goal is to move from a linear income model to a multidimensional one, where your wealth is generated by a diverse ecosystem of activities, including digital products, dividends, royalties, and automated services. This shift requires you to stop thinking like a loyal servant and start thinking like a sovereign entity that manages its own portfolio of value. Freedom begins the moment you realize that 1 is the most dangerous number in the world of finance, and you commit to breaking the chain of the single salary forever. The transition from an employee mindset to that of an investor and creator is the fundamental psychological pivot that allows you to start building income streams instead of just collecting paychecks. An employee asks what tasks they must perform to receive their fixed fee, while an investor asks what assets they can acquire or create that will continue to yield a return long after the initial work is completed. This is the essence of building income streams versus performing labor cycles, where every unit of energy you expend is designed to have a compounding effect on your future. As a creator, you are no longer selling your hours to the highest bidder, but rather you are manufacturing products of the mind that can be sold or leveraged 1,000,000 times over without your further intervention. Whether it is a software application, a digital book, or a specialized knowledge database, your creations become your digital soldiers working for you in the marketplace while you sleep. This perspective shift demands that you value your creative output more than your manual input, and that you prioritize the development of assets over the performance of duties. Investing is not merely about the stock market, it is about the strategic allocation of your time into projects that have a high probability of generating recurring revenue. You must become the architect of your own economy, building a robust structure that can withstand the collapse of any single pillar. This requires a level of discipline that is rare in a culture of instant gratification, as you must be willing to live on less than you earn to fund the creation of these streams. The wealthy are not just lucky, they are the masters of a diversified engine of value that they built piece by piece while others were busy polishing the chains of their own employment. Financial diversification is the shield of the smart worker and the engine of long-term stability, allowing you to navigate the shifting sands of the global economy without fear or hesitation. When you have multiple streams of income flowing into your life from various sources such as rental properties, automated online businesses, and investment portfolios, you create a buffer against the inevitable cycles of boom and bust. Most people are terrified of an economic downturn because they have no margin for error and no alternative sources of revenue, but for the diversified individual, a downturn is often an opportunity to acquire more assets at a discount. The importance of this strategy cannot be overstated because it fundamentally changes your relationship with the world of work. When you are not desperate for any single paycheck, you have the leverage to negotiate from a position of strength and the freedom to walk away from deals that do not align with your values. You must stop seeing your income as a river and start seeing it as an ocean fed by 100 different streams, each contributing to the total volume of your wealth. This level of complexity might seem daunting at first, but in the digital age, the tools for automation and global reach have made it easier than ever to manage a multifaceted financial life. The key is to start small by adding one additional stream of income that is unrelated to your primary job, and then using the proceeds from that stream to fund the next one. This process of systematic expansion is what turns a hard-working professional into a wealthy strategist who is no longer vulnerable to the whims of a single industry or employer. You are not just building wealth, you are building a fortress of security that allows you to live with a level of peace and autonomy that most people can only dream of. Escaping the single salary trap requires a radical commitment to personal responsibility and a willingness to step into the role of the primary driver of your own economic destiny. You must reject the societal narrative that promises safety in exchange for your total obedience to a corporate structure, and instead embrace the volatility of the marketplace as a source of growth. This means spending your evenings and weekends not in the pursuit of mindless entertainment, but in the pursuit of building your own autonomous systems of value. The smart worker understands that the most valuable thing they own is their attention, and they guard it ruthlessly against the distractions that would keep them poor and dependent. You must become a student of the markets, a researcher of trends, and a builder of solutions that solve real problems for real people. This is the path of the creator who realizes that wealth is not found in a fixed amount of money but in the ability to generate value on demand through a variety of channels. The psychological freedom that comes from knowing you have 5 or 6 different ways to make money is far more valuable than any promotion or pay raise you could ever receive from a single employer. It is the freedom to be truly yourself and to design a life that is not constrained by the requirements of a job description. This journey is not for the faint of heart but for those who are tired of the anxiety of the single salary. It is the only path that leads to genuine liberty. You must be willing to endure the initial struggle of managing multiple projects and the learning curve of new technologies, but the reward is a life where you are the master of your own time and the owner of your own future. As we conclude on income streams versus income chains, you must make a firm decision about which side of the financial divide you intend to inhabit. Will you continue to be the person who sells their soul to the clock for a single predictable deposit, or will you become the visionary who builds an empire of leveraged assets that provide for you and your family forever? The difference between the two is not a matter of intelligence or effort but a matter of strategy and mindset. The hard worker is always one crisis away from disaster, while the smart worker is the one who benefits from the crisis because they have built a resilient and diversified foundation. You have the tools and the knowledge to start building your own streams of income today, and the only thing standing in your way is the comfort of the very chain that is holding you back. Break the habit of reliance on a single source and start looking for the opportunities to create leverage in every area of your life. Whether it is through the power of digital systems, the magic of compounding interest, or the strength of strategic partnerships, you have the capability to create a financial reality that is as expansive as your imagination. The era of the loyal employee is over and the era of the sovereign creator has begun. Take the leap into the world of multiple income streams and experience the power of a life that is no longer measured by the hour but by the impact and the assets you leave behind. This is the ultimate goal of smart work and the only true way to ensure that you are never again a prisoner of the single salary trap. You are the architect of your own abundance, and the time to start building your masterpiece is right now. The trajectory of your life is not determined by the grand cinematic gestures of effort that the world sees but by the microscopic decisions you make in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Most people are blind to the fact that wealth is a cumulative phenomenon driven by the compounding effect of small strategic choices rather than the sheer intensity of a single day of hard labor. This is the logic of the elite, where every decision is viewed through the lens of its long-term trajectory rather than its immediate payoff. When you choose to invest an hour in learning a high-value skill instead of consuming mindless entertainment, you are not just gaining knowledge, you are altering your permanent baseline of value. These small choices act like the rudder of a massive ship, where a 1-degree shift in direction is imperceptible in the harbor but leads to an entirely different continent after 1,000 miles of travel. Smart work is the art of identifying these high-leverage decision points and making the choice that yields a disproportionate return over time. The analytical mind understands that the difference between a life of struggle and a life of abundance is often the result of 1,000 tiny decisions that favored the future self over the immediate desire. You must become a ruthless auditor of your own decision-making process, recognizing that every choice you make is either a deposit into your freedom or a withdrawal from your potential. The compounding effect is the most powerful force in the universe, and it works for you or against you with absolute mathematical indifference. To master the smart work code, you must stop seeing choices as isolated events and start seeing them as the foundational bricks of your future empire. This analytical awakening allows you to move with a sense of purpose and precision, because you know that the small choices of today are the massive results of tomorrow. Strategic thinking is the bridge between the chaos of activity and the clarity of achievement, and it requires a logical framework to filter the noise of the world and focus on the signals that matter. The elite do not make decisions based on emotion or social pressure. They use specific frameworks to ensure they are always moving toward high-leverage outcomes. One of the most powerful tools in the smart work arsenal is the Eisenhower matrix, which forces you to distinguish between what is urgent and what is actually important for your long-term wealth. Hard workers often spend their entire lives in the quadrant of urgency, handling crises and responding to the demands of others, while the smart worker prioritizes the quadrant of importance, where systems are built and leverage is created. Another critical framework is the concept of second-order thinking, where you look beyond the immediate consequences of a decision to see the chain of effects it will trigger in the future. A choice that feels good now, like taking a safe job with a fixed salary, might have the second-order effect of capping your growth and preventing you from ever building an autonomous system of income. By applying these logical filters, you remove the guesswork from your life and replace it with a strategic blueprint for success. You must develop the discipline to pause and analyze every major commitment of your time and energy, asking if it is a linear task or a leveraged opportunity. This sharp focus on strategy ensures that you are not just moving fast but moving in the right direction. The world is full of busy people who are going nowhere because they lack the logical frameworks to guide their energy toward the points of maximum impact. The compounding of wealth is mirrored by the compounding of competence, where small daily improvements in your strategic thinking lead to a massive cognitive advantage over the rest of the population. When you commit to being just 1% better in your decision-making every day, you are not just making progress, you are achieving exponential growth that eventually makes you untouchable in the marketplace. This is why the rich seem to get richer with less effort, because they have already compounded their systems and their knowledge to a point where every new decision is backed by a massive reservoir of previous successes. The logic of smart work dictates that you should prioritize the accumulation of assets that compound, such as digital intellectual property or automated financial investments. While the hard worker is stuck in a cycle of starting from zero every Monday morning, the smart worker is building upon a foundation that grows on its own. This requires a level of patience that is rare in a society addicted to the dopamine hit of immediate results. You must be willing to make the smart choice today, even if the reward is not visible for months or years. The motivational power of this realization comes from the fact that you do not need to be a genius to achieve massive results. You simply need to be more consistent and more strategic in your small choices than everyone else. By focusing on the compounding effect, you take the pressure off the present moment and place your trust in the mathematical certainty of your strategy. Every small choice to favor leverage over labor is a victory in the long game of financial freedom, and as these victories stack up, they create a momentum that eventually becomes an unstoppable force of nature. High leverage decisions are characterized by their ability to solve a problem once so that it never requires your attention again, allowing you to reclaim your cognitive bandwidth for even higher level thinking. This is the essence of the smart work code, where you replace manual intervention with structural solutions. When you decide to build a system or automate a procedure, you are making a choice that pays dividends forever, whereas a hard work decision only pays you for the time you spend doing the task. Successful people are obsessed with this distinction, and they will often spend more time planning the system than they would have spent doing the work manually. This is a sharp departure from the average mindset, which views planning as a waste of time and values activity above all else. You must train yourself to look for the structural flaws in your life and your business and make the strategic decision to fix them at the root. Whether it is a software tool that handles your client communication or a financial plan that automates your investments, these are the small choices that create a life of ease and abundance. The analytical worker is like a grandmaster who spends their time studying the board to find the one move that collapses the opponent's entire defense. You are not looking for more work, you are looking for the decision that eliminates the need for future work. This logical approach to life reduces stress and increases output because you are no longer fighting the same battles over and over again. You are moving from a state of reactive firefighting to a state of proactive engineering where your life is a series of well-designed outcomes. The results of this shift are massive because they free you from the gravity of the mundane and allow you to soar into the atmosphere of high-level vision and impact. The final theory is that your current financial state is the direct result of the sum of your past decisions, and therefore your future state is entirely within your control, starting with the next choice you make. This is both a sobering reality and an incredibly empowering truth because it means you are not a victim of circumstance but an architect of destiny. To achieve massive results, you must be willing to make the analytical choices that others find uncomfortable or difficult. You must choose the long-term gain over the short-term comfort and the strategic leverage over the social validation of being busy. The path of smart work is paved with these small but powerful choices, and it leads to a destination where wealth is not a struggle but a byproduct of your superior decision-making. As you move forward from this moment, commit to being a sharp and logical guardian of your time and your energy. Use the frameworks we have discussed to filter your opportunities and focus only on the ones that offer the highest return on your investment. Do not be discouraged if the results are not immediate, because you now understand the power of compounding and you know that the math is on your side. You are no longer working for money, you are making the decisions that make money work for you. This is the ultimate expression of the smart work philosophy and the key to unlocking a life of extraordinary freedom and success. The small choices you make in the next hour will echo through the next decade of your life, so make them with the confidence of a strategist who knows exactly where they are going. The world belongs to the thinkers and the builders who understand that smart decisions are the real currency of the elite and that massive results are the inevitable reward of those who master the art of the choice. The final evolution of the smart work protocol is not a change in your schedule but a total transformation of your internal frequency, where you cease to be a predator chasing after the shadows of currency and become a gravity well that pulls abundance into your orbit. This is the ultimate shift from the desperation of the grind to the authority of the architect, because wealth in its purest form is attracted to the person you become rather than the volume of activities you perform. While the hard worker is trapped in a frantic cycle of pursuit driven by the fear of lack, the smart worker operates from a place of sovereign power and systemic leverage that signals a high level of value to the marketplace. You must undergo an identity shift so profound that you no longer recognize the person who used to trade their vital life force for a fixed hourly rate. This transformation requires you to shed the skin of the servant and adopt the mantle of the creator, who understands that the world is a mirror reflecting the quality of your internal state. When you move with the quiet confidence of someone who has mastered the art of leverage, the universe responds by aligning opportunities and resources with your new higher standard of existence. You are no longer begging for a seat at the table, you are building the room and defining the terms of the conversation. The shift begins the moment you decide that your time is too precious to be sold and your mind is too powerful to be wasted on the mundane. You must cultivate a psychological environment where wealth is viewed as a natural byproduct of your superior thinking patterns and your commitment to high-level impact. This cinematic awakening is the climax of your journey, where the noise of the struggle is replaced by the symphony of a life designed for maximum freedom and effortless scale. You are the conductor of this reality, and the music of your success is played through the instruments of systems and strategy. To attract wealth instead of chasing it, you must become a master of the energetic exchange between your vision and the global economy, recognizing that your external reality will always lag behind your internal evolution. Most people fail because they wait for the money to arrive before they change their behavior, but the elite know that you must embody the identity of the wealthy individual before the physical evidence manifests. This behavioral evolution involves the ruthless elimination of low-value habits and the adoption of a rigorous mental discipline that prioritizes long-term structural health over short-term dopamine hits. You must move through the world with a sense of inevitability, knowing that your systems are working even when you are at rest and that your value is compounding even when you are silent. This is the essence of the shift, where you stop viewing work as a moral obligation and start viewing it as a strategic deployment of your unique genius. When you operate from this state of high-level alignment, you stop vibrating at the frequency of effort and start vibrating at the frequency of results. People are naturally drawn to those who possess a clear sense of purpose and a mastery over their environment, and this social gravity becomes its own form of leverage. You find that the right partners, the right investors, and the right platforms appear at exactly the moment your mindset is prepared to handle them. This is not magic, it is the mechanical result of a mind that has been purged of the scarcity programming and replaced with the logic of abundance. You are training yourself to see the levers of the world that were previously invisible, and as your vision clears, your bank account expands to match the scale of your perspective. The struggle ends when the alignment begins, and the alignment begins when you finally accept that you were never meant to be a beast of burden but a visionary of the modern age. The behavioral evolution of the smart worker is marked by a transition from reactive survival to proactive engineering, where every decision is a brushstroke on the canvas of a masterpiece. You must develop a radical intolerance for any activity that does not move you closer to your ultimate state of liberty, recognizing that busyness is often a form of laziness that prevents you from doing the difficult work of thinking. As you become the person who attracts wealth, you will notice that your social circle changes, your vocabulary shifts, and your priorities realign with the laws of compounding and leverage. You stop explaining yourself to those who are committed to their own mediocrity, and you start seeking out the individuals who challenge the boundaries of what you thought was possible. This shift in community is a critical component of the transformation, because wealth is a social phenomenon that flows through networks of high-value connections. By upgrading your mental environment, you are effectively upgrading the software of your life, ensuring that you are always operating at the highest possible efficiency. You must be willing to let go of the parts of yourself that were forged in the fires of struggle, because they will only act as anchors in the ocean of your new abundance. The Smart Work Code demands a total surrender to the process of becoming something greater than you have ever been, which requires the courage to walk away from the safety of the known. This is a cinematic journey of the soul, where you are both the sculptor and the stone, chipping away at the limitations of your past until the masterpiece of your future is revealed. You are no longer defined by what you do but by who you are, and who you are is a person for whom wealth is an inevitable and continuous reality. The power of this shift lies in its permanence, because once you have seen the world through the lens of smart work, you can never return to the blindness of the grind. As you step into this final transformation, you must realize that the bridge between your current life and your dream life is built with the bricks of your own self-worth. You cannot attract what you do not believe you deserve, and you cannot maintain what you have not mastered internally. The shift is a reclamation of your inherent power as a creator who has the ability to dictate the flow of value through the application of intelligence and technology. You have spent these chapters learning the mechanics of leverage, the psychology of money, and the strategy of systems, but none of it matters if you do not have the heart to inhabit the role of the master. This is the moment where you set fire to the scripts of your upbringing and the expectations of a society that wanted you to stay average and quiet. You are rising from the ashes of the hard work myth and soaring into the atmosphere of elite achievement where the air is clear and the view is infinite. This inspirational awakening is your birthright, and it is the only way to truly honor the limited time you have been given in this human experience. You are a sovereign entity with a mind designed for expansion and a spirit designed for liberty. Do not settle for the scraps of the economy when you have the capacity to own the engine. The transformation is complete when you can look at the world and see not a series of obstacles but a map of opportunities waiting for your strategic touch. You are the one who changes everything, and the world is waiting for you to take your place at the helm of your own destiny. The era of the chase is over and the era of the attraction has begun. Every thought you think and every system you build is a beacon that calls your future self into existence, and that person is already wealthy beyond measure and free beyond imagination. This is the end of the old paradigm and the dawn of a new reality where your labor is a choice and your freedom is a fact. You have broken the conditioning of the masses and embraced the code of the elite, realizing that the difference between poverty and prosperity is simply a matter of where you place your focus and how you apply your mind. The powerful transformation message of this entire journey is that you are the primary leverage point in your own life, and when you change the pivot, the entire world moves. Go forth with the confidence of a visionary who knows that the math of smart work is infallible and the psychology of wealth is absolute. You are no longer working for a paycheck, you are working for a legacy that will echo long after the hours have been forgotten. The shift is not something that happens to you, it is something you claim for yourself through the radical application of everything you have learned in these pages. You are the architect of your own abundance, the engineer of your own freedom, and the master of your own time. The world belongs to the thinkers, the builders, and the dreamers who are brave enough to work smart and live large. This is your moment of awakening, and the door to a life of extraordinary wealth is now wide open for you to walk through. Do not hesitate and do not look back, because the person you were yesterday has no business in the world you are building tomorrow. Embrace your power as a creator of value and a magnet for success, because the shift has already occurred within you and the results are now inevitable. This is your life redefined, your future reclaimed, and your potential fully realized in the light of the Smart Work Code. You are free, you are wealthy, and you are exactly where you were always meant to be. Welcome to the elite.